the Sandman and Kadin in on the call here too, guys. Perhaps your videos are not showing right now, but hopefully you could see us. And so just for everybody at home who's going to be doing this using Zwift or TrainerRoad or another application, you can see the countdown timer. We're going to try to sync our starts to this workout so that we'll be able to all be on about the same time. And if you don't have a smart trainer, if you're on a spin bike, or if you're on just a regular trainer, that's good too. We'll be able to sync along with the time. All right, so we're going to be starting in just about a minute, guys. So just to tell you what we're doing today, today's workout, we are going to be simulating something we often do when we ride at the Power Watts studio, which I know is something we haven't had a chance to do recently. It's going to be a workout that might remind you of something like a stage race where we have all sorts of things mixed in. We're going to have some 10-second accelerations. We're going to have some 20-second surges. We're going to have some 1-minute efforts at high and low cadence, kind of like target segments that you guys might do during a stage race. So we're going to throw all sorts of different skills your way today to help challenge you in different ways. That's going to challenge your power output, but it's also going to challenge your focus and your control. Okay, guys, so we're going to be starting in 30 seconds. So if you are loaded up in Zwift or TrainerRoad already, just hit start or start pedaling right when that countdown timer gets to 0, and then we'll be good to go. All right. Oh, I saw the Sandman for a second there.
Looked like he was still in bed.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so get ready to sync the start. So start pedaling in 3, 2, 1, and we are underway with the Power Watts home workout number 9 live session, all mixed up. So the Sandman, you're just going to be watching us from the couch today. Is that what's going on?
Mark, I hurt myself running yesterday.
You hurt yourself running. How'd you do that, Sandman?
I don't know. I guess I haven't been stretching and I've been pushing a bit too much. So it's my T-band. I think it's really painful.
Oh, yeah? Not a good time for such a thing to happen with all the physiotherapy clinics closed and everything like that.
No.
Perhaps we'll have to have a little chat afterwards so I can give you some pointers on how to work through that for the time being. But thanks for popping in anyway, Sandman, even though you got a bit of an injury going on.
I tried getting on the bike, but it's painful.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to wait till some of that inflammation goes away. You want to limit the amount of pain that you work through for a particular injury like that. Well, so sorry to hear that, Sandman. All right, guys, so right now we're just warming up at around 50% watts. So when we're riding at 50%, so if you guys don't have access to power, just be riding at like a 3 or 4 out of 10 effort just to keep it nice and smooth, just to gradually warm up the body here. And hopefully everyone's timer is synced, and if it's not synced, that's fine. You could just follow along with the instructions that you see on screen. Something that, if you're looking at a screen right now, something that might be easier on Zoom is to pin the video of me, so that way you guys always see that countdown timer. So even if somebody else is talking, or even if James is giving us some key coaching advice, you'll still be able to see that countdown timer if you pin this video. So that might be helpful for some of you guys. All right. So our special guest coach today from Power Watts P2, longtime coach, former swimmer, turned cyclist, turned triathlete, turned bread maker during this period of of time without P2 being open. We have Coach James Cote. How you doing today, James?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Everybody good?
Give a thumbs up if you're good, guys.
major beard envy right now, Sam. Major beard
yeah.
envy. When I grow up, I want to be like you.
You know, a lot of people want to grow up and be like Samtastic, but not everybody can.
I think I know everybody, except maybe Tony and Brenda? Ted and Brenda. What's going on?
Yeah, so that's JF. That would be JF and Brenda.
JF and Brenda.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys.
So,
The Tank, Mike Shetler, and Steph Dwyer are watching on Facebook. So what's going on, guys?
All right. So we got the Tank, Mike Shetler. How you guys doing? And who else did you mention?
Stefan Dwyer.
Oh, Stefan Dodier. Thanks for joining us, Stefan. Pleasure to have you on board here today. And we're experimenting with the Facebook Live. So those of you guys watching on Facebook Live, tell us what your experience is like. We've been using YouTube to this point. Now today we're trying Facebook, and you could tell us if you find the experience is better. And if you ever wanted to jump in on the Zoom session so that you can, if you want your videos to appear, then just join that Zoom link that was in that invitation video that we sent out. Okay, guys, so let's set the tone for what we're going to do today. So I mentioned it's kind of like a stage race style workout that we're doing. If you guys take a look at the course profile below me, you can see that we've got some spikes of power. The spikes of power that you guys see are going to be 10 seconds at around 180%. Some of you guys will probably end up doing a little bit more than 180%. We got some 20-second surges. The target on those surges is around 135%, plus or minus a little bit. And before each of the surges and each of the 10-second accelerations, we have 1-minute blocks at 90% or 95%, and those are going to have either high cadence targets or low cadence targets. So that might remind you a little bit of like a target segment during a stage race where you're riding at a particular power, particular cadence, then you have only a very brief reset period before you got to give a kick into an acceleration, whether it be a 10-second or a 20-second acceleration. So that's what you see in the first drill. Right in the middle of that first drill, we have a 4-minute block at 85% to challenge your endurance development. And again, there we're going to be playing around with the cadence a little bit. So even if you don't have a cadence sensor, you could practice pedaling a little bit faster, pedaling a little bit slower. All right, guys, so let's just go to 60% for a minute here. And if you're on a spinning bike, for example, what you could do is just decrease the tension a little bit at the higher cadence, increase the tension a bit at the lower cadence, and that'll kind of recreate that fluctuation that you'd feel if you're on a bike where you could adjust the gears. And so that's our first drill. Our second drill, we have 15 seconds high power, 15 seconds low power. So the high power is going to be 125%. The low power is going to be 75%. And you're going to bounce around for that every 15 seconds. So 15 seconds low, 15 seconds high. And similar to the first drill, before we do the 15 seconds low, 15 seconds high, we either have a 90-second block at low cadence or a 1-minute block at high cadence to get you guys grinding or spinning before we do those accelerations. Some of those accelerations are going to be done sitting, some of them are going to be done standing, or we might alternate sit and stand to challenge you guys a little bit on that skill. All right, so now let's go up to about 70% and we'll work the cadence a bit now. Now we're going between 100 and 120 on the RPM if you can. Try to make those gearing adjustments. Something that happens oftentimes at home is there might be a little bit of a lag between you adjusting your cadence and that cadence change appearing on TrainerRoad or Zwift or whatever training software you're using. So always bring that cadence up first and then wait a good like 10 seconds, see what the cadence adjusts to on screen, and then make further adjustments to the gears if you need. Not everything operates as quickly as what we have set up in the Power Watts room, but we're doing what we can with what we have access to here. So the Sandman, did you have a question?
I do. I have a hard time writing these workouts. You want to give them the update here?
All right, guys. So let's just ease it down to 60%. So Sandman, what was your feedback?
I have a hard time getting out of erg mode on TrainerRoad. For some reason, every time I take it off erg mode on TrainerRoad, it's my cadence is on the hardest gear. It's like spinning at like 120, 130. But if I ride it on Zwift, it's much. I ride off of erg mode.
So in TrainerRoad, from what I understand, there's a resistance mode setting. And in that resistance mode setting, you can adjust the amount of trainer resistance that you have. So perhaps your trainer resistance level is too low. So it's always bringing you to these really, really high cadences. I've seen some of your rides on Garmin Connect and things like that where you cover like 75 kilometers in an hour. So that
Yeah.
could have to do with the resistance level of
So
your trainer.
I've changed that trainer since then, so I don't have that problem.
Oh, okay. So you've gotten another trainer. All right, guys. So let's go to 80%, 60 to 80 on the RPM. So I'm not a trainer road expert. I've never actually used it myself, but when I was reading about the documents, if you guys have the issue that the Sandman was having of getting that cadence really, really high when you get out of erg mode, you might have to adjust the resistance setting. And we have the Tank joining us now on the call. Welcome, Tank. Nice to have you on board on the Zoom call. So right now, guys, we're working at a slightly lower cadence, and then we're going to go back to 60%, and that's how we're going to be fluctuating on the RPMs for the rest of the warm-up. We're going to be doing 1 minute at higher cadence, 1 minute kind of active recovery, 1 minute at lower cadence. So, Coach James Cote, what kind of advice would you have for our riders on how to address, pedaling at higher cadence versus pedaling at lower cadence, like we're doing now in the warm-up and like we're going to be doing a bit later in the workout?
Well, when you ride at a little bit of a higher cadence, it kind of has the same feeling maybe as riding downhill or something like that. When the momentum picks up in the pedal stroke, you got to focus a little bit more on the bottom portion. Kind of if you were to imagine the crank arm as a clock, you're thinking a little bit more about the 5 through 7 o'clock portion of the pedal stroke to make sure you're really grabbing the drivetrain where it's important. So instead of really focusing on pushing down on the pedals, you want to start gearing more towards focusing on sweeping back on the pedals. And then when it gets really high, if you have a hard time producing power when the cadence is high, then you can think about sliding your body weight a little bit forward in the saddle. Now your center of gravity is a little bit in front of the pedals, and you'll have an easier time pushing into that lower portion of the pedal stroke.
Well, so there you go, guys. So let's give that a try. We're coming up to a higher cadence segment here, 100 to 120 on the RPM, about 90% watts. If you don't have power, just think about riding at maybe a 6.5, 7 out of 10 here. And let's try to use some of those pointers. So really focusing on the sweep from 5 to 7 o'clock. And if you guys are comfortable, say you settle in at 105 RPM and you want to challenge yourself a little more, you can go one gear easier, continue to focus on that sweep. And then, like James mentioned, maybe even move forward on the saddle a little bit more as that cadence gets really high. So we got another 30 seconds like this. So keep working the slightly higher cadence. We have higher cadence blocks. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them throughout the workout. So it's good to get a handle of it during the warm-up right away. So we got 15 more seconds like this, guys. Then we go down to 60%. And just at 60%, bring that effort level down to maybe like a 4 out of 10. Maybe 5 out of 10 if you found the high cadence a little difficult here. Okay, so let's ease it down. So James, what do you think? What do you think about the low cadence piece that these guys are about to do? 60 to 80 on the RPM.
So the interesting thing is that almost the exact same thing becomes true. So now we want to put a little extra attention onto the top piece of the pedal stroke so that we can start grabbing onto the drivetrain a little early, like closer to 1 or 2 o'clock instead of right at 3 o'clock. So you want to start thinking about pulling your foot over the top portion of that 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock portion of the pedal stroke before pushing down, and sitting back a little bit in the pedal in the saddle to get a little bit more glutes involved, and pulling a little bit on the handlebars to help leverage your leg over the top during that more muscular effort. So your right arm pulls on the handlebar to pull your left leg over the top, and vice versa.
Aha. Okay, so we're about to give that a try, guys. So we're going to go to 100%. Bring yourself to maybe an 8 out of 10 effort. 60 to 80 on the RPM. So let's try engaging a little bit more over the top of the pedal stroke. Very interesting advice from Coach James about trying to coordinate the opposite arm and leg to get a bit more leverage, say on the left arm when you're pushing with the right leg. And I know a lot of you guys out there are all about the glutes. So if you can move back a bit on the saddle and kick over the top, you can get that glute development that you guys are looking for. So we got another 30 seconds like this. Trophy wife, put a bit more tension on your trainer. Put a bit more tension. Let's bring that cadence down a little bit. Yeah, good. And work that grinding action, kicking over the top of the pedal stroke in addition to the downwards push. And play around on the saddle, perhaps sliding a bit backwards on the saddle. But if you're comfortable where you're sitting now, save the sitting further back on the saddle for a little bit later. So we got a couple more seconds, guys. Then we have a 2.5 minute recovery period. So 3, 2, 1, and let's back it off. All right, guys. So we got the warm-up done. Hopefully everybody feels prepared for some of the higher cadence and lower cadence. So, James, could you just give us another quick recap about the difference between the high and the low cadence? Because they're going to have to do that a bunch of times in the next drill, but there's not going to be a lot of time to think about it because it's a real rapid-fire exercise.
Right. So when you're going fast, you want to focus a little bit more on the bottom portion of the pedal stroke, just to make sure you're engaging the drivetrain where it's really important to produce that power, kind of in the lower end from 5 to 7. So really thinking about sweeping back. And then when you're going slowly, instead of just pushing down, you want to also think about the top portion so that you make sure you're taking advantage of the whole portion of the pedal stroke where you can produce the power. So fast cadence, sweep the bottom; low cadence, pull over the top.
There we go. Fantastic, guys. So there you go. Some different techniques that you guys can try throughout the session. And the interesting thing to keep in mind is if you're trying to change your pedaling technique using some of the suggestions that Coach James has, it might at first make it feel a little bit harder if you're accessing muscles you haven't used before. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. The key thing is that you feel something different than you felt before. Just take mental note of it and keep working on that technique, and over time it'll become more and more natural and it'll help improve your pedaling skills. So thanks for that. So now next up, guys, we have our drill. I'll go over it quickly, the first part of it, and then the second part of it is very similar. So you guys are going to be riding at 90% and 100 RPM for a minute, so you can practice those higher RPM pedaling skills. Then for 20 seconds, you go down to 70%, and that 20 seconds is meant just to be a lead up for a 10-second seated acceleration to 180%. So that's going to be a quick, hard acceleration sitting, and then after that, you have a 40-second active recovery period at 50%. And then we repeat the similar structure, except you guys are going to be at a low cadence, and then that low cadence is going to lead us into a 20-second surge instead of a 10-second acceleration. Okay, so we're about to go to 90% and 100 RPM. So get ready, guys. After the 90%, it's not rest. We go to 70% to get ready for that 10-second seated acceleration. So 3, 2, 1, and here we go, guys. Do your best to estimate the cadence if you don't have a cadence sensor. And in terms of level of effort, maybe a 7.5 out of 10 at 90%. So James, what do you think our riders at home should do for that 10-second seated acceleration? Some people struggle with seated high power output.
The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you initiate your acceleration from the gear that you were riding in when you were doing that first step at 70%. And make sure you really drive through whatever gear you were in before moving into a harder gear, so that you can, because it's a very short effort, so it's just as important to get the power up quickly as it is to get there. So make sure you really drive through the gear you were in. Now, it's really only talking about a second or a second and a half here before adding a couple more gears to make sure you can maintain the effort.
All right, guys, so we're going to give that a try in just a sec here. So we're about to go down to 70%. So choose a gear that doesn't feel too heavy at 70%. You might just pedal a bit slower in the gear you're in, or you might go one gear harder. And don't change your gear right away. Let's follow the advice here. Let's give a strong kick up to 180%, and then maybe 2, 3, 4 seconds later, make a gearing adjustment. Okay, so get ready, guys. So grab those handlebars, tighten up a little bit. 3, 2, 1, and go. Drive it to 180. Drive it to 180, guys. Keep up that effort. Big power right here. Very challenging seat acceleration. 3, 2, 1, and back it off. Wow. Okay, great work, guys. So now let's go to about 50% watts. So you don't want to be riding passively right now. Kind of imagine, again, that stage race context where you always want to have a little bit of pressure underneath the feet. So well done, guys, on that 10-second seated acceleration. So now we're at 50%. Then we're going to go to 95% and 80 RPM. So you can use those lower RPM tricks that we practiced in the warm-up. And after the low RPM, it's a 20-second surge this time instead of a 10-second acceleration. Okay, so let's go to 95%, maybe 8.5 out of 10 effort here, and about 80 on the RPM. So for some of you, this is your RPM comfort zone. For some of you, it might feel a little bit low. So, so James, what do you think about this 20-second seated acceleration coming up? How do you suggest our riders approach that?
So the rules are the same. We should still try to accelerate from the gear that we were initially in, but we don't have the same sense of urgency, right? We don't need to be as explosive. So let's still accelerate that gear that you were riding in, that step that came just before for the first second. Add a gear or two to maintain the effort. And now you have to think a little bit more about hanging on to the effort. It's not quite as short. So find the cadence that's comfortable, probably something, 80 through 95 RPM for most of you guys, nothing too extreme. And focus on the bottom of the pedal stroke. Instead of focusing so much, once you have the power steady, instead of focusing so much on the power, take a look at your cadence and try to keep it the same and not let it slow down as the fatigue builds.
All right, guys, so let's go down to 70%. So some interesting tactics that you can employ here on our 20-second surge that's coming up. So get into a gear that you know you can accelerate quickly. Accelerate first, then change the gear, and you might end up at a slightly lower cadence than before, and then focus on your cadence to hold that 135. So 3, 2, 1, and give it a strong kick, guys. Give it a strong kick. Stay sitting here. Okay, now you might need to make some gearing adjustments. And now you can focus on the cadence the rest of the way. Sweep through that bottom of the pedal stroke. Like Coach James was suggesting, that's a good way to sustain the power to the end of the 20 seconds. So 3, 2, 1, and back it off. So keep some pressure underneath your feet. Let's just bring the watts down a little bit. We're looking at about 50% watts here for 40 seconds. So good stuff, guys. So now you got a feel for that 10-second surge and the 20-second surge. We are about to do each one of them again. But this time, it's going to be done standing up. Okay, so we have a 1 minute at 90% and 80 RPM coming up. Then the 20-second lead-up period to a 10-second standing acceleration. And we'll get Coach James to give us some advice on the difference between the sitting and the standing acceleration. But first up, let's go to 90%, 80 on the RPM. So here we go, guys. So James, what do you think about the standing acceleration here? How should it be approached?
So I usually like to explain to the riders in my class to go through short standing efforts like this. There's like a 3-step process before we get started. Because I find a lot of times people will stand up way before they're prepared for a standing effort. So as you're approaching the standing effort, 3 to 4 seconds beforehand, accelerate from a seated position in the gear you were already in. So get a little momentum into the pedals, then add the gears you're going to need. Considering that each gear change is going to lower your cadence by 6 to 10 RPM. So think about how many gears you're going to need to add to be comfortable standing. So as accelerate, add your 3 gears, turn that big gear over once or twice until you feel it start to push up against you, and then stand up.
All right.
It sounds like a lot of stuff, but it all happens in 2 seconds.
So let's go down to 70%, guys. So keep that in mind. So when you initiate that acceleration, do it sitting first. Feel that resistance kind of go away a little bit. Then make the gearing adjustments and get up out of the saddle. Okay, so get ready, guys. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, and give it push, 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 and up out of the saddle and drive over the top of the pedal stroke. Drive down through the bottom. Drive those knees up and down. Way to be, guys. Good kick up to 180%. And let's go back down to 50. So a little bit of active recovery at 50%. So well done, guys. Great standing acceleration. So that was a quick one. The next one, we're going to be standing a little bit longer. This is going to be 20 seconds of standing. Before that, we have 1 minute at 95% and 100 RPM. So this is going to create a little bit of fatigue in the legs, just like much of the stuff we've done to this point, but perhaps a little bit more because it's at 95% and 100 on the RPM. So if you don't have power cadence at home, bring your effort level up to maybe 8.5, 9 out of 10 here and feel like you're spinning faster than usual. So let's go to 95%, 100 on the RPM. So James, we got a 20-second standing acceleration coming up. Should they approach that one differently or about the same way?
I think we can get started the same way, but again, your power's a little bit lower, your effort's a little bit longer, so you don't need to be quite as explosive in that initial acceleration. What's going to be important is that you find the appropriate gear. We can, even if we have the wrong gear for a 10-second acceleration, you can sort it out, but 20 seconds a little bit longer, you're going to want to make sure you get yourself kind of probably between 60 and 75 RPM. If it's too low, it's not very comfortable. If it's too fast, you may not be able to hang on through the last couple of seconds.
So there you go, guys. So for the 20 seconds, you might have to make more gearing adjustments while you're standing than you did during the 10-second one. And if you don't have gears like Trophy Wife, you're on the spinning bike, if halfway through the 20-second acceleration, if you got to add a bit of more resistance, go ahead. That's the equivalent of going into a harder gear. Okay, so let's go to 70%, guys. So 70%, think of this as a lead-up period for our standing acceleration. So you want to be in a medium gear here. Not too hard, not too easy, so you can quickly get into that standing position. And then once you're standing, make the gearing adjustments to get to the cadence you need to be at. All right, so 3, 2, 1, and up out of the saddle, guys. And Mean Gene standing in the arrow position. Keep it up, Mean Gene. Now make some additional gearing adjustments if you guys need. Way to be, Ted. Great knee drive, Ted. Keep that up. We got J-Train and Big Nick really working that cadence. Big Nick, that looks like a pretty high cadence you got there. And Brenda, JF, fantastic way to be, guys. All right, and ease it down. So this is a 40-second recovery period, so you could totally unload the feet for a moment if you guys need. Good, so well done. Looking at the effort levels in the videos that I see, looks like some of you guys were probably over that 135%, but nothing wrong with that. So great standing efforts. So now we're going to really switch to a more endurance development exercise. It's going to be 4 minutes at 85%. We're going to alternate 1 minute high cadence, 1 minute low cadence in the exact same way we practiced in the warm-up. So we're about to get started, guys. 85%, 100 to 120 on the RPM. So 3, 2, 1, and here we go. So build that cadence up. Get that cadence first. And then if you look in your gauge and the power's too high or the power's too low, then you can adjust your gear. But focus on that cadence first. We want you guys concentrating a little bit more on the technique of the high switching into the high into the low cadence. So in this exercise, we're switching from these anaerobic surges into more of a general endurance development. You might find the 85% feels a little harder than usual because of all the surges we just did. So those of you guys at home, if you don't have power, normally an 85% might be, say, a 7, 7.5 out of 10. Maybe ride at closer to an 8 because of the accumulation of fatigue. Okay, so we're coming up to 1 minute, 85%, 60 to 80 on the RPM, and we want you guys to stay sitting. So we're going from 100, about, say, 100, 110 RPM down to, say, like 70 RPM. So we're looking at multiple gear shifts. Each gear, like James told us, probably somewhere between 5 and 10 RPM change. Okay, so adjust those gears. Gear 2 or 3 harder, and stay sitting for the effort. And remember what James told us earlier, try to adjust where you apply the force on the pedals to try to access your muscle a little bit differently. At the low cadence, start to initiate your pedal stroke earlier, even as of maybe even 11 o'clock, especially as of like 1 o'clock, and then really drive down into those pedals. So we got another 30 seconds. So James, what do you think the benefits of doing a 4-minute drill at 85% would be after doing all those accelerations that we just did? What does that simulate, for example?
I mean, one of the things that's great about a Power Watts class that this will simulate a lot is that as this pertains to like riding outside, it kind of helps us.
So I'm just going to interrupt for a sec. Okay, couple gears easier, guys. 100 to 120 RPM. So now settle back into that slightly higher cadence. So back to you, James.
All of that hard work that you did before the long, steady effort, it sort of helps us put you in the feeling that while you're doing this steady effort, that you've actually been out riding for quite a bit longer, right? Because there's a lot more fatigue from all the hard work. So it's one of the ways that a 1-hour Power Watt session prepares you for a little bit more real riding in real life.
So that very good point. The power output like 85% in theory is something you guys can hold for probably almost 2 hours continuously. But given all the accelerations that we did earlier, we've accumulated fatigue at a much faster rate. So it is going to develop more endurance for you guys without having to hold this kind of power for like 2 hours or an hour and a half or an hour straight. Okay, so now we're coming up to our last minute here. We're going to go 60 to 80 on the RPM. Try a body positional adjustment. Yeah, Trophy Wife, increase that resistance. Good, well done. J-Train, Big Nick, get into those harder gears, guys. So 60 to 80 on the RPM. Mean Gene, well done. Working that lower cadence. Good work, Samtastic. And we got Brenda and JF. JF down in the drops. I don't see that a lot. I like that, JF. keep practicing that. You'll get a couple kilometers an hour faster when you ride outdoors compared to no hands on the bars. And good work, Ted. Keep working it up. Cat in, keep working hard. Keep working that low cadence. So we got a couple more seconds, guys, 20 seconds. Then you can really unload the feet for 40 seconds if you want before we jump into the second half of this drill with the 20-second and 10-second accelerations. So another 10 seconds, guys. So really work that force output down into those pedals. And then we're going to back it off. So 3, 2, 1. And we got some recovery. So we got 40 seconds of recovery. Then we're going to do 1 minute, 90%, 80 RPM, which is going to lead us into a 20-second seated acceleration. So, James, what do you think now that these guys have just done a block of endurance development? How might that affect their seating, their 20-second and 10-second accelerations?
So as the fatigue builds up, that higher cadence and that ability to accelerate is going to get a little bit more challenging. Need to focus on it even more. I think one of the things that people start to...
All right, guys, so let's go up to 90% and slightly harder than normal gear here for some of you. 80 on the RPM. I know some of you are super comfortable at 80. So back to you, James.
The first thing that tends to go by the wayside as people get tired in a Power Watts class is their interest in doing higher cadence efforts. But I think in general, one of the things that happens to us through the season when we do a lot of indoor trainer work is our cadence usually starts to slow down a little bit. The trainer's always a little bit more muscular than riding outside. So when there's an opportunity to do when you're asked to do a higher cadence effort, you should really do your best to take those on.
So you would suggest they use a higher than normal cadence also maybe for the 10 and 20 second surges?
Yeah, and follow the same instructions from before. Always try to accelerate from the gear you're in so that think about driving your Ferrari. I know, you guys probably still have it in storage from the winter.
Yeah.
But you never pull out of the parking spot in fifth gear, right?
All right, guys, so let's go to 70%. I'm sure everyone's really motivated thinking about their Ferrari coming out for the summer real soon here. And now we got a 20-second. It's a seated acceleration. So accelerate first. Go up to those higher cadences that you might not want to, but it's going to really help that power output. So 3, 2, 1. Stay sitting. Bring that cadence up. Don't change the gear right away. And if you feel like you're overspinning, get into a gear or two harder here to sustain it for the whole 20 seconds. Good way to be, guys. Great work, Mean Gene. Keep it up, Ted. Trophy Wife, yeah, put a bit more resistance on there. Good, Jeff, Brenda, Samtastic. Well done, guys. Okay, now let's ease it down to 50% for 40 seconds. So now we're coming up to a 1 minute, 95% and 100 on the RPM. You're definitely going to be feeling the effects of everything we've done to this point, and especially that 20-second surge we just did. So when we start this higher cadence segment, really make sure that you get up to that higher cadence. James mentioned that you guys' bodies might not naturally want to go there because of the resistance of the trainer and the accumulation of fatigue, but let's make sure you get there. So adjust your gears to try to go well over 100 RPM for the first, say, 10 or 15 seconds, and then go a gear harder to settle in at 100. Okay, so get into a gear that's a bit too easy. Let's go to 95% and around 100, maybe even a bit more than 100 on the RPM. RPE, for those of you guys without power at this point, 8.5 out of 10. This is pretty challenging power, 95%, after some of the stuff that we've just done. So good work. Work that cadence. Trophy Wife, put a tad more resistance on there. And work the bottom of that pedal stroke as well. And if you guys find that you're a little bouncy, you can use the other piece that James told us to slide forward a bit on the saddle to get your center of gravity more over the pedals. That helps to reduce the amount of bounce when you guys are riding at the higher cadence. So next up is going to be 10 seconds. So we have a 20-second drop down to 70%, then 10-second seated acceleration to 180%. So 10 more seconds like this, guys. And then keep a good amount of foot pressure. You want to maintain your momentum here at 70%. So 3, 2, 1. Let's ease it down to 70%. Okay, maintain your momentum. And now choose a gear, maybe be at 80 or so RPM, that you can give a quick seated acceleration. You got to stay sitting for this. This is going to take a lot of focus. So really get a good grip on those handlebars and drive down into the pedals. In 3, 2, 1, and go for it, guys. Go for it. Big watts, big watts. Good way to be Ted. Keep it up, Ken. Super job, Mean Gene. Well done, trophy wife. Okay, let's ease it down to 50%. So keep a bit of foot pressure here, but this is definitely a bit of recovery, but we want it to be active, so you just got to keep that foot pressure as we go. All right, guys, so 90% coming up, 100 on the RPM. So if you're starting to feel a little bit fatigued from those surges, play around with the body positions again. So James mentioned, a bit more forward on the saddle at the higher cadence, sweep it through the bottom of the pedal stroke. Any other little tricks, James, for someone who might be pretty fatigued at this point?
Think about as you're forward in the saddle.
So let's go up, guys. Let's go up to 90% and 100 RPM. So back to you, James.
So think about drawing your belly button up into your lower back just to tilt your pelvis a little bit forward and push your sit bones into the saddle to keep you feeling really engaged and not shaking around all over the place.
Yeah, so the key is, so we mentioned, try not to be passive through the core here, guys. Engaging through the core, using the belly button trick a little bit. That's definitely going to lock you down to the saddle. So Jeff, try going one gear easier. Keep that up, Brenda. Well done on the cadence. Very nice. Mean Gene, Bettina, really spinning your legs. Way to be, trophy wife. So keep that up, Ted. Well done, Big Nick and J-Train. Now we got another 15 seconds of this, and then it's not recovery, okay? We ease it down to 70%, so keep a good foot pressure. And then we're going to do a 20-second standing acceleration to 135%. So 3, 2, 1, and ease it down. So, James, what kind of RPM do you think people should be using for this next standing acceleration?
You come in the acceleration, you want to kind of probably sort yourself out between 60 and 75 RPM as quickly as possible. So you can think about the cadence you're at right now and try to add the gears right away.
So give that kick, guys. Give that kick. Up out of the saddle, guys. Up out of the saddle. Now, and settle in. Now, quickly look at that cadence. Let's get to that 60 to 75 range. Hopefully you have the gears for that. Normally we'd do something like this probably on an uphill in our PowerWatt studios. So 3, 2, 1, and back it off to 50%. Okay, great stuff, guys. So we have 1 minute at 95%, 80 RPM coming up. And then we have our last segment of this exercise, 10 seconds standing at 180. So any thoughts, James, about that last 10 seconds that they got to do?
10 seconds of 180 is like going to be a soft sprint effort. So you can think about, I'm sure a lot of you guys on the Zoom meeting work with Coach Mark, and he gives you a lot of cues about coming up to the sprint efforts. But our power coming up is going to be 70% before that. And if you can get yourself between 65 and 75 RPM.
So here we go, guys. 95%, 80 RPM. Just settle in there, guys. We still got some time before we get to the sprint. So back to you, James.
The timing is going to be really important. So as you're coming up to the 10-second effort, try to find the gear that you're going to keep for the full 10 seconds beforehand so that you just accelerate through it. So 70%, 60 to 70 RPM. And think about the timing. Think about where your feet are in the pedal stroke and try to stand up as your foot comes over 2, 3 o'clock in the pedal stroke so that you can grab the handlebars tight and really drive right into the beginning of it.
Oh, fantastic. So there you go, guys. Some real actionable items right there that we can try out in just a sec. So we got 15 more seconds at 95%, 80 RPM. This is key, this segment, because it's creating fatigue. So you got to practice fatigue sprinting or fatigue acceleration. And when we go to 70%, think about what James said. Find that gear that you're going to use for the entire 10-second acceleration. So ease it down to 70%. Depending on the type of rider you are, James mentioned maybe somewhere between 60, 70, 75 RPM, and then you'll try to stay in that gear for the entire 10 seconds. And engage initially at around the 2 to 3 o'clock position. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, and time it, and drive down into the pedals at 2 or 3 o'clock. Can stay standing, Ted. Stay out of the saddle. All the way, guys. Saddle. Out of the saddle all the way. So 3, 2, 1, and that's it, guys. All right, back it off. And we got 3 minutes of recovery, so now you can really unload the feet. So great exercise that we had there. I'm sure it reminded you guys of the demands of the stage race or some of those course-based workouts that we do, where you got to do a king of the mountain, king of the downhill target, back to back to back to work all these different qualities that we've been working in the first 8 workouts of the Power Watts home programs. We're putting them together here today. So fantastic efforts. So get a little bit of recovery here. We have a longer recovery block before we move into our next drill, where we're going to be mixing 2 different riding types, riding styles. And this time our focus is going to be on quick acceleration, deceleration. So it's going to be 15 seconds at 75%, 15 seconds at 125%. If you guys look at the workout profile right underneath, you can see that there's 3 of those. The first one is going to be sitting all the way. The second one, you're going to be standing for all the 15-second high power segments. And the third one, you're going to alternate between 1 rep standing and 1 rep sitting. So, Coach James, what do you think? How should riders manage themselves when they got to go from 75 to 125% and stay sitting versus going from 75 to 125 and having to stand up?
Well, I think, we sort of practiced this situation in the first half of the workout, but now we're going to have to do those things over and over and over again quite quickly, right? But being able to keep a lighter cadence during the efforts at 75% when you're doing the seated efforts is going to allow you to accelerate more smoothly and more quickly each time. You'll still need to pay attention to the pressure on your feet so that you can add additional gears as you stop to feel the pressure that you need and maintain the power through, and then gently soften up back down to 75%. But the key is to remember at that point, once you're happy with the power that you're holding in that easier effort, is to take back some of those gears that you added during the hard effort so that you're not re-accelerating in the hard gear that you were in before. So it's a little dance through the whole thing. Add 2 gears, take 2 back. Add 2 gears, take 2 back.
Oh, there. So that's going to be really key, guys, because we didn't accelerate repeatedly in the last drill. We did an acceleration, then we rested. Here it's back and again and again and again. So dancing with the gears, great analogy. That's what you guys are going to have to be doing. Now, before we get to those 15-second high power, low power drills, we're going to be doing a 1.5 minute, kind of a simulated climb here. We're going to be riding at 100% and 60 to 80 on the RPM. Okay, so we're going in 10 seconds here, guys. So we want to be working a little bit more of a muscular effort at 100%. So let's say 8.5 out of 10 intensity. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, and let's go to 100%. It probably will take you 15, 20 seconds to find that gear to get you between 60 and 80 on the RPM. It's up to you if you want to do this sitting all the way, or you might alternate a bit of sitting, a bit of standing, or maybe some of you guys might want to stand the whole way. If you stand the whole way, you'll probably be closer to the 60 than to the 80 on the RPM. So here we're trying to, again, create some pre-fatigue in the muscles before we work those repeated accelerations. You can imagine a scenario where you guys got to do a short climb, a 90-second, 2-minute climb or something like that, and then you come over the top of the climb and you're going down a slight hill with some corners, for example. You slow down into the corner, accelerate out of the corner, slow down to the corner, accelerate out of the corner, which is kind of similar to these 15-second on-off efforts that are coming next. So you can imagine that kind of scenario. So well done, Samtastic. Keep working that low cadence. Brenda, well done. Nice position, Brenda. JF up out of the saddle. Good climbing. Good climbing position. Mean Gene working that low cadence. Are you having a nap, Big Nick, while you ride? J Train working that low cadence. Keep it up, Trophy Wife. Well done, Ted. Kadin, keep up the good work. And we're going to be going down to a recovery power here in 3, 2, 1. All right, so that's done. So you can unload your feet for 40 seconds. And now we're going to do the 15-second high, 15-second low. So this one is sitting all the way. So James, what would you suggest in terms of cadence? Lower cadence on the high power, higher cadence on the low power, or vice versa?
I think so. You keep the cadence. You can keep the cadence relatively consistent, but the most thing that's important is to keep a lighter cadence during the easier efforts.
Lighter cadence during the easier efforts. Okay, guys.
And always remembering to drive into the harder effort in the gear that you're in. So it's accelerate first, shift after.
So let's go to 75%, guys. A gear that you feel is a light, comfortable gear. and then we're about to go to 125 for the first time, and we got to drive into it in that same gear, and then maybe adjust gears a few seconds later. So 3, 2, 1, and drive into it up to 125. Not a massive power here, but it's something that's going to add up over the reps. So keep it up. Perhaps you've gone 1, 2, 3 gears harder. Take note of how many gear adjustments you've made. So 3, 2, 1, and now keep a good foot pressure, but just slowly ease it down to 75%. This is where James mentioned that if you went 2 gears harder, you're going to want to go 2 gears easier now. Or if you went 3 gears harder, you'll want to go 3 gears easier. Okay, and now reaccelerate back up to 125%. Staying sitting. Really work that quickness of the acceleration, and that's going to force you guys to find that gear that's not too easy or not too hard to get that quick acceleration. All right, so back down to 75%. If we were doing this in studio, remember I'd ask you guys not to go into the blue during this, so you'd slowly go from 125 down to 75. Make that gearing adjustment, and we're going back to 125, guys. 3, 2, 1, and go again. Quick acceleration. Work those fast twitch muscle fibers to initiate the acceleration despite the accumulation of fatigue. Good way to be, guys. Great efforts. I'm seeing some higher cadences, some lower cadences, so that's great. So let's go back to 75 on the RPM. So we have 2 accelerations left. I want you guys to try something a little different on each of the 2 of them. Maybe a different body position, maybe a different gear, maybe a different cadence. So 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Try something a little different. Further forward on the saddle, further back on the saddle, lower RPM, higher RPM, just to see the difference. So a couple more seconds. Go all the way. Don't slow down when you hear the beep. All the way, all the way, all the way. And let's ease it down to 75%. And now we got one more. And again, try something a little different. Make sure the acceleration is rapid. And then try different gear, different position. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, and go. Last seated acceleration. We got 10 more seconds, guys, and I want you going all the way to the end. Wow, great work on the cadence. We got Big Nick going muscular, J-Train going muscular on the effort. Keep it up, guys, all the way. And let's back it off for 40 seconds. Super job, guys. In those last few reps, I saw everybody making some adjustments, changing the way they went about it. That's another thing you want to take advantage of in these types of workouts with multiple repetitions. Try to find multiple strategies that allow you to be successful so that when we do this in a stage race context or in a context of an event or something like that and you're really desperate, you know you have multiple options available to you to succeed. Okay, so the rest is almost over, guys. Now we're going to 90%, 100 to 120 on the RPM for a minute. So we're looking to spin the legs. So 3, 2, 1, let's go up to a higher than normal cadence for each one of you. So if you're really comfortable at 100 RPM, try 105, try 110. We're trying to really spin the legs. And the power output, 90%, probably an 8.5 out of 10 effort now after those repeat surges. Okay, so let's come back to some of the tricks that James told us. Trying to work the sweep through that bottom of the pedal stroke. Think about anchoring your hips down to the saddle. You can pull the belly button in to assist that. And you can slide forward on the saddle if you need to get your center of gravity a little bit more over the pedals. So keep working the technique. Also, don't forget to try to stay relaxed in the face, neck, shoulders, elbows. Just because you're pedaling fast, you don't have to tighten up. You might tighten up when we do the surges, that's okay. But right now, you want to try to stay loose and work that cadence, with the exception of maybe your core being a little engaged. So a couple more seconds. So 3, 2, 1. And back it off. So 40 seconds recovery. So next one, 15 seconds at 75, 15 seconds at 125, but all the 125s are going to be done standing. Any words of advice, Coach James?
Yeah, I want you guys, I'm going to give you a little tip for when you're finishing the standing effort, guys. As the 15-second hard effort finishes up and it's time to sit back down, and the gear you're using for the standing effort is likely too big to be comfortable seated, I want you to grab the handlebars tightly and accelerate a little bit the gear that you were standing in just in the final seconds of the effort, just to put a little bit more momentum in your legs as you sit back down.
So let's go to 75%.
You to adjust.
So say that last part again, Coach James.
So just accelerating just as you finish the hard effort, so you have a little bit of additional leg speed as you sit back down, and a little bit more momentum in the pedal stroke to help you adjust to being seated and find the gear that's appropriate.
So
now.
Up out of the saddle, guys. Up out of the saddle. Okay, and when you guys hear the beep, let's use Coach James' trick here. Increase your cadence a little bit. So increase your cadence a little bit now, and now have a seat, and that's going to give you some extra momentum as you sit down. Ease the watts down and perhaps adjust the gear. So that's actually a really good trick that has multiple practical applications. I can mention one shortly. Okay, so up out of the saddle again, guys. So standing up. So quick acceleration out of the saddle. You can work that knee drive, or you can work driving the foot down. And again, when you hear that beep, whatever gear you're in, just increase the cadence a little bit. Increase the cadence a little bit. Now ease the hips down to the saddle and go a gear or two easier. So fantastic. So we're going to practice that 3 more times. You could try different cadences. You could try hands on the hoods. You could try hands in the drops for different body positions. So 3, 2, 1, and up again. Here we go. Yeah, there you go. Ted down in the drops. Fantastic. See how that feels. Keep that up, Mean Gene. Maybe a gear easier, Mean Gene. So keep it up, guys. Good work, Big Nick. Good work, J-Train. Well done, Trophy Wife. So 3, 2, 1. Little acceleration as you sit down. Great, fantastic, nice transition to sitting. Keep it up, Brenda. Keep it up, Jeff. Jeff, a bit more cadence, a bit more foot pressure at 75% here. Okay, and now get ready, guys. 3, 2, 1, and up again. Up out of the saddle. Excellent work. Okay, so find that cadence, find that body position. As the fatigue accumulates here, you're going to want to slow down, but not yet. Increase your cadence a bit. Increase your cadence. And now, have a seat, go down to 75%, and we have one more standing surge. Make the gearing adjustments that you guys need. So last one, let's see a good kick up to 125%. So 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Kick it up, kick it up. Way to be, guys, and after this one, it's a 40-second recovery, but let's still give a final little push with 3 seconds to go. Okay, so 3 seconds ago. So 3, 2, 1, and let's back it off. So 40-second recovery. So that advice from Coach James was really interesting, actually, because that will apply, say, if you're riding with a friend or you're riding in a group. After you've done your pull at the front, sometimes as you're kind of coming towards the back, you might be standing up and then you want to jump back onto the wheel of your riding friend. So as you sit back down, you have to give a little acceleration to increase your speed to be the same speed as the rider in front of you, and then you sit down. So that's a great skill that can be implemented when you guys start riding outside really soon, or maybe even this afternoon for some of you guys. Okay, so now we got a 1.5 minute climb. So 100%, and let's go 60 to 80 on the RPM. So slightly lower than normal on the cadence. Working the strength here. And so Coach James, if many riders at home can't put a hill on there, but let's say we imagine there was a hill, there was additional resistance of a hill. What kind of climbing advice would you give for this kind of effort?
So, I mean, the climbing advice is kind of like the low cadence advice from earlier on, but you know, depending on the kind of climb you're doing, if it's let's imagine, even though it's a short effort, we're on a long, steady climb. So try to find something comfortable, or comfortably uncomfortable. Maybe we can use the tops of the bars to give our backs a little rest. The aerodynamics not usually as important as we're climbing. And when you open up your hip angle, you can generate a little more power, especially through that top portion of the pedal stroke that we were telling you to focus on. And try to remember to breathe like a normal person.
What, not like a dog, you mean?
Exactly.
So we got 15 more seconds here, guys. So those are some good pointers. It's not exactly a climbing workout, but it's always good to keep these ideas in mind, especially, say, changing your torso position on that climb, because that's going to open up the hips, stretch the back a little bit to change the load. All right, so we got 40 seconds of recovery, so you can unload the feet. So now we have our final batch of 15-second high power, 15-second low power. It's not the last drill. There's one drill after this that's going to focus on high cadence. Now, in this one, the first rep, the third rep, and the fifth rep are going to be standing, and the second rep and the fourth rep are going to be sitting. So you're going to have to really work the gearing. Like Coach James was saying before, you got to go easier gears, harder gears, before, after, during the accelerations. Now you're going to have to do it even more because the gearing requirements are going to be different whether you're sitting or standing. Okay, so let's go to 75%. So get a little bit of momentum. Now the first one is going to be standing. So you're definitely going to be going into harder gears for the standing. The second one is sitting. So during the recovery period or the active recovery coming up, you're going to have to go into more easier gears. So 3, 2, 1. And standing up, give that quick acceleration, guys. As the resistance goes away underneath your feet, adjust that gear to make sure you're applying good force to the pedals. And now after this, it's not recovery. Okay, so increase the cadence a bit, like Coach James was saying. And now sit down. Let's go to 75%. Go several gears easier to get ready for a seated acceleration here. So seated to 125. So 3, 2, 1, and here we go. 125% sitting. You okay, trophy wife? Or perhaps you're frozen. So keep it up. Way to be, Samtastic. All right, so down to 75%. Good work, Brenda. Good work, JF. Good. Way to work those gears, guys. Keep it up, Mean Gene. So next one is standing, so you might need a little bit of a harder gear. So get ready. 3, 2, 1, and standing up. And here we go, 125%. Good, nice standing position, guys. Keep up that effort. Way to be, Samtastic. JF and Brenda, nice position. Keep it up, Mean Gene. J-Train and Big Nick, great work. Okay, and now ease it down to 75%. So adjust the gears to get a bit more cadence, get a bit more leg speed, going into our seated acceleration. So 3, 2, 1, and go, guys. Seated acceleration. Spin those legs. Get that cadence to get the power. Great focus, guys. 5 more seconds. Then we go back to 75. So slowly ease it down. And here we have our last 15-second acceleration. So I want everyone to give a little bit more oomph. Really focus on standing up with your foot at 2 to 3 o'clock and really drive down into those pedals to initiate. So 3, 2, 1, and drive into those pedals. Let's go, guys. And everyone, bring that cadence up more than before. Use a higher RPM to generate maybe a little bit more power than earlier. Keep going, guys. All the way, all the way. Accelerate again. 3, 2, 1, and back it off. So very short recovery here, 40-second recovery, and we got 1 minute left. 90%, 100 to 120 RPM. We want you guys to finish working on the leg speed, so feel free to go to 100 to 120 RPM, and then maybe if you want to challenge yourself at the end, rather than go really high on the power, go really high on the cadence. Okay, so we're going to get started in 15 seconds. So everyone get ready. Keep an eye on the timer here. This is the last effort of the day. James, any advice for everybody on this last effort here?
I can't think of any good reason why you wouldn't just go all out.
All right, guys, so here we go. 90% at least. 100 to 120 on the RPM. So a couple gears easier, Ted. Get that cadence going. Let's do it with high cadence, guys. Good. Way to be, Jeff. Way to be, Brenda. Keep it up, Samtastic. Nice cadence work, Mean Gene. We got J-Train and Big Nick spinning the legs. Keep it up, Bettina. Way to be, Ted. Keep it up, Cat In. And in the last 30 seconds, guys, just tighten up a little bit more. Tighten up the core. Maybe grip the handlebars a little bit tighter. And drive those legs up and down more quickly. You could focus on sweeping through the bottom. You could drive the knee up. You can kick the foot over the top. All the different skills we've practiced. Use them all simultaneously to get that cadence real high. So we're almost there, guys. So last 10 seconds. And Ted up out of the saddle. Way to be, Ted. Finish it up strong. So a couple more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and wow. Some really high cadences there, Brenda and JF. Great finish, guys. And there you go. There you have it. We're done. So interesting. Rather than finishing on that high anaerobic power, we finished on a more comfortable power, but I think a lot of you maybe went over the power, but working that cadence at the end. Coach James mentioned earlier that as you get fatigued, it's a little bit harder to get to those higher cadences. So I'm really happy to see that at the most fatigued part of the workout, everybody made that effort to bring that cadence higher. So great work across the board, guys. So Kadin's a super job. Thank you for the applause and we're applauding you for your effort. And so, Coach James, so what do you think about what we did today, what you saw today from the riders? Any parting words for everybody?
I think you guys work too hard.
Yeah, they work too hard?
You guys are crazy.
You know, the only way to make indoor training fun and interesting usually is to work a little bit harder than necessary, because otherwise it just gets boring, right?
Yes, all the time.
So what kind of take-home points would you want our riders to take home? Say if they went out for an outdoor ride in the next few days, anything that you'd want them to apply from this workout to outdoor riding or other Power Watts workouts that are coming down the pipe?
Well, look, in today's workout, you guys were forced to do a range of powers at a lot of different cadences, and this is something anybody who watched earlier in the week when Paulo was here, he was talking about your cadence envelope. Try to force yourself to do more work at more different leg speeds and change your pace more with different cadences, and don't always shift as much. Try to vary things a little bit more with the leg speed. Anybody who watched less in the 60 to 70 RPM range and more in the 85 to 100 RPM talking about your cadence envelope, especially later in your rides. Force yourself to do more work at more different leg speeds and change your pace.
So very interesting, guys. So thank you guys for joining in. Thanks for that advice, Coach James. It was really helpful hearing advice. So we've had Paulo on, we've had Coach James on. We're gonna have different coaches on, because sometimes hearing different techniques or different ways to approach a particular drill, sometimes things just click in your head and say, okay, yeah, that's the best way for me to do it. That's the way that I'm going to do it moving forward. So Ted, thanks so much for joining in. Did you enjoy the Power Watts home workout here today, the live session?
That was awesome. But James, you forgot to turn my fan up higher.
Oh,
I didn't get the angle right.
Yeah.
The angle's right. It's all the body. I need it up higher.
We got to get the hair going.
I was going to say, Ted, your hair wasn't going, so I knew the fan was off, but I didn't want to mention anything,
It's there. It's just the wrong angle.
And Big Nick and J-Train, do you have anything you guys wanted to say about our workout today?
Well, it was hard.
It was hard. Perhaps the fact that you've done the Power Watts Pro Challenge 4 times maybe accumulate a little bit of fatigue before today's workout. What do you think, Big Nick?
Could be. I've got to say, though, thank you so much for the session with Guillaume and Rory and Paulo midweek. Well, you saw yesterday's result, and just listening to you and them made it much better.
And J-Train, how did you find our workout today?
Really, really good, because it's all the kind of stuff I hate, the acceleration. But I don't know. I think I need more obedience. And that first one at 180, I was nowhere near it.
Yeah, but I think for you, J-Train, it probably takes a little bit more warm-up time for you, especially to get ready for those really high kicks. So as long as you were able to get it a little bit later in the workout, it's okay if you weren't able to get it on that first one.
I only missed one because of non-focus.
Oh, non-focus. I guess you're distracted. I mean, most people when they ride beside Big Nick are always distracted anyways, so I don't blame you.
Thanks, Mark. It was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you again, Mark.
My pleasure.
Everyone.
Good to see you, James.
So, Mean Gene, did you enjoy the workout today?
I loved it.
Yeah, and you were riding it on Zwift, and it went okay?
Yeah, perfect.
You were able to see your cadence and everything?
No, but it tells me if I'm not going fast enough, it tells me to spin faster. If I'm going too fast, it tells me to spin slower.
Okay, so perfect. So you're able to get some
I'm in the range.
guidance on that. Good. Way to be, Mean Gene. How about you, Samtastic and Trophy Wife?
Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad that both you guys joined together.
Yeah, it's a great session.
Great session,
I've done all your courses and followed you. It's excellent. Second best thing to being together at Power Watch.
Yeah, I mean, we're all really excited to be back together at Power Watts, but I'm glad you're enjoying the home program so far as a stopgap solution. And
Thank you.
Brenda and JF, how did you guys enjoy the session today?
I still got some juice, Mark.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess we didn't finish with a 30-second all-out, or we didn't do any 10-second sprints during the cool-down, so...
I don't have a power meter, so I started the first set too hard, I'm sure. But then I recovered towards the end. So it's good.
Well, great effort. How about you, Brenda?
Yeah, well, I always find the high cadence and high power is hard, but I still push.
Yeah, and that high cadence is getting better. I mean, your position looks good. You look compact on the bike. We got the pistoning and the legs going, so it's just a matter of practice until it slowly becomes more comfortable.
Well, thanks so much for this. It's awesome.
Yep, thank you.
It's our pleasure. And were there any questions or anything from Facebook, James?
No,
Or everything's looking good?
everything's good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for everyone for attending on Facebook Live, on the Zoom meeting. It was a pleasure to have you guys. And it's a nice day out there in Montreal, so anyone who's around the area, maybe go out for a nice walk or a nice ride this afternoon to make sure you spend some time outdoors while you can. Yeah.
Mark, when's the next session?
We're probably gonna do another one Wednesday at noon. We're gonna set out the schedule. We've been experimenting with different times, so that's probably gonna be the next one. We'll definitely be confirming it at the beginning of the week for you guys, so you know.
Good job. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Great to see everyone.
Bye.
And yeah, special thank you to Coach James, our special guest coach,
Thanks,
who helped
James.
everyone take it to the next level. So thanks so much, guys, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.